Okay, hello. Thanks for coming to our presentation. The name of our presentation is Trials and Tribulations of Team Teaching, Perspectives of Teacher, Educators, and Students. There are three of us for this presentation, myself, Martha Lengling, Iracema Mora Pablo, and Edgar Emanuel Garcia Ponce. We're all from the University of Guanajuato. For today's presentation, we're going to look at the literature review, historical overview, definitions, pros and cons, as well as research methodology, data analysis, discussion of data, and conclusions and references. Iracema?
Yes, we can see that individual teaching is still the main practice in teacher education programs. In this study, we will look at collaborative teaching and its benefits in two language education programs. Next one. Historically, collaboration has been mostly used among teachers in K-12 education with diverse students, meaning that this could be with groups of students with special needs or those students who are at risk for failing classes. Also, this has been used across the US, mainly in high schools, since the 1960s for gaining better control of large groups of students or for bringing variety into the traditional single subject and subject teacher classroom. There are different concepts to define when we talk about collaboration among teachers. We can find collaborative teaching, co-teaching, team teaching, and cooperative teaching. Team teaching can be defined as a group of two or more teachers working together to plan, conduct, and evaluate the learning activities for the same group of learners. Also, there are different models for working collaboratively. For example, we have one group, one leader, one lead teacher, one teacher teaching on purpose. Number two groups, two teachers teach same contents. Number three, two groups, one teacher reteaches, one teacher teaches alternative information. Number four, multiple groups, two teachers monitor teach, content may vary. And number five, one group, two teachers teach the same content. For the purposes of this study and for this presentation, we will focus on the last one group and two teachers teaching the same content at a similar level of collaboration in the planning, delivery, and or evaluation of a course. In these studies between collaborative teaching and team teaching, we can find that there are different pros and cons. For the pros, we can find that greater student achievement with students, but also more negotiation of meaning and learning from each other's knowledge and skills by sharing perspectives and ideas. Both features in this type of teaching are engaged in the planning and teaching, and rather than lecturing, they are in constant conversation to encourage discussion by students. Also, we can find more encouragement of teachers to take risks and try new things, but also we can say that this is a useful strategy to train a new generation of educators thinking ahead in the development of the language program. On the other side, we find cons, and we can say that the pre-planning phase needs time and a lot of organization. Also, communication can be a problem if there is a lack of clarification of roles and interaction. The teacher's roles need to be clearly defined for shared responsibility, and this requires a high level of commitment and communication between the teachers.
Thank you. Okay, in the area of teacher education, team teaching has been identified as one way to provide teachers with greater exposure to diverse fields of knowledge and practice. The previous studies focus on the area of teacher education, but there is a gap in literature related to English language teaching and team teaching at university level. With this in mind, the study aimed to see how ELT teacher educators perceive team teaching, as well as how students from a BA and MA level viewed being taught by team teaching. In our context, we have implemented team teaching for less than a decade at a BA and MA level, and this was our motivation. To understand the perspectives of teacher educators and students, a qualitative approach was used, enabling us to explore the participants' words and actions in narrative and descriptive ways. To collect the data, we utilized 2 online surveys on Google Forms, one for the teacher educators and another for the students. The online surveys provided us with the possibility to contact both groups from the distance because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The survey for teacher educators consisted of 11 questions, while the student surveys had 10 questions. Both included a combination of closed-ended and open-ended questions in English regarding their experiences of team teaching. The research question that we aim to answer is the following. What are the teacher educators and students' perspectives of a team teaching practice in a BA and ELT and MA in applied linguistics in ELT in Mexico? Regarding the context, this study took place in a language department of a large public university in central Mexico. The language department offers teacher education programs in the BA, in ELT, and MA in applied linguistics in ELT. Team teaching has been implemented in this context for almost a decade. And up to now, there is no formal evidence in this context which shows how teachers and students view team teaching practices, and this was our motivation. The participants were 9 teacher educators and a total of 29 students from the MA and BA. Next one, please. Okay, after collecting the data, we read through the participants' responses several times with the purpose of finding emerging themes. This thematic analysis involved identifying the data extracts which suggested the participants' views. To increase the reliability of the findings, 2 researchers analyzed the data individually and then compared the results of their analysis.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. Now we're going to look at the data, and we'll begin with the definitions of what the 2 groups, the educators and the students, said about team teaching. These are definitions about team teaching. One says teaching together from preparation through giving class to assessment with all warts and all. Another person said 2 professors share, organize, and co-teach the contents of the same class. The goal of team teaching is to enhance the quality of teaching and ensure the attainment of learning objectives. Finally, from a master's student, we had it involves sharing their plans, achievements, goals, and group learning. So here we can see that both groups really had an idea of what team teaching was about when they were asked to define team teaching. Now we're going to look at what the 2 groups said about the benefits. And first of all, they said it was an opportunity to change the routine. This goes back to the idea that most students have classes with 1 teacher. And so they would also say that carrying out the class was more dynamic, not repetitive. It was interesting, meaningful, more fun. Both teachers had to play different roles during the classroom. One was a lecturer, another one was supporting the students' learning. Another area was that they felt that there was a reduced workload, less work to check homework. The shared role is also essential for feedback and evaluation, resulting in fairness and objectivity. So here we have 2 teachers that give, variety of work and help each other out. More personalized attention can be given. A BA student mentions having 2 opinions makes the class more content rich. Other benefits are teachers learning from each other. This is teacher development. Educators can learn from their colleagues, not only diverse techniques, but also how to deliver information. So they're learning from each other. It helped my own teacher development when I felt supported by a partner, developing overall teaching practice, abilities, decisions. I am also learning how to recognize and when to try to help another teacher's development. So they're both helping each other with their development. Finally, lots of experience from other colleagues who are experienced teachers is the main benefit I have perceived for my teaching professional development. And then we had two people who said that team teaching helped them get out of their comfort zone. And so I think this is really interesting. Students also learned from the two teachers. The two teachers learned from each other, but then the students also learned from the two teachers. We are able to notice more aspects that could be useful to our own teaching. These students have teaching experience. They're a small amount of years of teaching, but they can find things that they can take to their teaching practice. Different strategies, approaches, and points of view, all in the same place, are much easier to take in as they can be contrasted with team teaching. Now, having looked at benefits, we can now look at challenges. First, the students responded that it was a little bit weird, strange, disconcerting at first, surprise, and hard to get used to at the beginning because they had many, many years of being taught with one teacher. Students may not feel comfortable with the presence of two teachers. These were some first reactions. Another sub-theme was not knowing. It is still a little bit confusing. We are all used to having a single teacher in the classroom, so it can get awkward when you do not know who to approach. So at sometimes they may have questions, well, who do I go to? Should I choose the other one? You know, would it be disrespectful? Regarding the teachers, 6 of the 9 teachers mentioned that team teaching requires more time. It takes more time to work together, more organization and planning, as it is not possible to wait until the last minute. And so we have 2 schedules of people and they always have to figure out, well, what time can the other teacher work? So time is an issue. Another sub-theme was teacher roles. At times you could tell that there is an alpha teacher and a beta teacher. And this refers to positions of power, one more dominant than the other, meaning that it is really obvious that one is in control. Also, the only time that roles might change is when one of the teachers is not in the class. Another person mentioned that a teacher might be lazy, and so the other one has to put more effort in to guide the lessons. Both teachers should be leaders and active participants. I had issues when one of the 2 teachers seemed to be the main teacher and the other one seemed to be this assistant. So this is valuable information to look at regarding roles. There were also issues of differences with disagreements, how to carry out things in the classroom. Different points of view might create confusion rather than broaden the comprehension, analysis spectrum of the students. From a teacher perspective, there could be times where you don't want to adapt your own teaching style or technique. And what happens is then that these teachers will have to work with tolerance. Lastly, we have personalities may be at conflict if the teachers are not on the same page. Now we asked a question about team teaching during COVID-19. 13 students said there was no change and 3 teachers also said the same. A few said the only thing which is different is time, as more time is required for preparing, and that I view this as negative. More difficult to have this easy flow in the classroom when it's face-to-face between the teachers, because you have to look at the muted mics for one teacher to pick up nonverbal cues of their partner, and for teachers to easily share comments that they might be able to whisper to each other during a class face-to-face. Again, communication during COVID can be an issue. You need to be in constant communication with your colleague so that you're on the same page, but it is hard to accomplish with time and connection with the internet. But let's look at the positive side of team teaching during COVID. It was at a positive influence. If one teacher experiences technical difficulties, the other person can continue. The other person can help this teacher and make things less complicated. The last piece of data that we have, when I teach, team teach in these times, I have had support from the other teacher. So this is really positive in the sense that this other person, the other teacher, supports the other teacher. For me to have the other teacher has helped me through these times of COVID. I do not feel like the one teacher who has all the responsibility. I've learned how to go about online teaching with another teacher. Iracema?
Now, based on these results, we can say that both groups found team teaching to be complex in the sense that teaching is not simply a matter of dividing up what is done in teaching. This requires trust, communication, and respect. Therefore, this relationship requires time, sharing, and negotiation to successfully carry out the teaching functions. Teachers need to be on the same page with open communication. An important aspect is to have a clear understanding entailing grading, evaluation, feedback, and resolution of issues is essential. Also, diversity of two teachers together can be seen as positive for learning and teaching. Finally, about the values that the participants claim to have learned are flexibility, patience, understanding, respect, tolerance, cooperation, responsibility, and collegiality. As part of our conclusions, we can say that collaborative teaching is a way to support teacher educators in classes focused on language pedagogy, research, thesis direction, classroom observation, and academic writing or large classes. It requires solid planning and selection of teachers needed to find a positive fit with, in order to have an impact on the program that they are teaching. It was important to collect input regarding this experience at the end of the semester from the participants and use as advice for future team taught classes to see if we need to make some changes in the collaboration, for example. This has implications for coordinators and administrators, and it can be of great interest to teachers, educators, EFL, ESL teachers, coordinators, administrators, and program designers. Since this requires planning and a continuous evaluation of the results of this collaboration, it is important to have all the actors together. Research conclusions are valuable for our programs to reflect upon what we do as teacher educators and to see how both teachers and students view this mode of teaching. We would like to say that we feel fortunate that we have been able to have this opportunity in both degrees, in the BA and in the MA. These are our references, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.